Okay, so I'll be doing a video overview of my level for the top-down shooter framework. In this video I'll be going over some of the weapons, mechanics and scoring, while mentioning the UI aspects as well throughout the level. So we start off with a little bit of narrative that I use the tutorial pickups to use. So it just shows that you're the last bunker buster, because you're the only one left with a bunker buster weapon. So you start in this battlefield showing the dead friendlies and enemies littered around. This area of the level is just to get the player familiar with the movement controls, aiming controls, while also giving a bit of danger with some obstacles. So we've got this ravine going into a lake, and bits of foliage with collision, just to give the player a little bit of things to avoid. If the player at any time goes a bit too strays off from the path too much, they'll start taking periodic damage to the health on the left hand side, and the armor is to the right. So once the player navigates this area, they'll get to the first part of combat, which they'll be able to use the weapons. The main weapon is the autocannon, which is a 3-shot burst that has some accuracy deviation, so it can go in all 3 axes from when firing, just to give it a bit of a randomness. So go up here, following the quests. So it's just 3-shot burst every 0.25 seconds, and restart sets every second. I designed it to be 2 seconds, but found that was far too long to wait, and these do 2 damage versus the enemies. So there is the bunker buster, but as the tutorial at the beginning said, to save that for the end, as it's a high damaging beam to bust the bunker. So I designed this weapon to be medium to long range, but because of the lack of scheduled game testing for this semester, I didn't actually test this level properly, and I've only finished meshing it out in the last few days. And since then I've found that the weapon doesn't actually perform as well as I'd intended. As you can see, projectiles collide with each other and cancel each other out. At long range it becomes far too inaccurate to actually be useful, so the player does have to get quite close. So in hindsight, this weapon would need to be redesigned, as it doesn't work as intended. I'd probably reduce the damage, the accuracy deviation. So once the players move through the level, they get to this bit of a ravine again. It's just a small bit, but the player has to be careful. If they go down, there's no way back up, and then they'll start taking the periodic damage again. So getting through there, the player starts to enter an abandoned town. Now this town is being patrolled by the enemy along these streets, so the player has to look out, because eventually they'll bump into them. Now these enemies, because they are patrol, they aren't as strong as the turrets, and don't award as much score, but they are harder to hit as they do move, which again with a weapon can be quite frustrating. So talking about score, the turrets award the most score. I believe it was 50 whilst the patrols were 25. Yes. So just getting through this, the player will eventually come to the first checkpoint after encountering the first lot of enemies. They might have taken some damage, which I have. Getting quite low on ammo again because of the inaccuracy of the weapon. It does use a lot more ammo than anticipated. So it really does work to get behind the enemies and shoot them with the autocannon. So this is the first checkpoint and go-to marker, which leads me to the quest log. This animation. So this go-to marker is 50% of the go to the checkpoints. Can activate the first checkpoint, pick up some ammo for the Gatling gun, not a Gatling gun, autocannon, and just give us some repair of health and armor. Some much needed health and armor, and then continue on and take the quest log away. So carry on back through the town. Again, more patrol enemies. Sometimes you can get lucky if you aim just ahead. After that, the player arrives at another deviation similar to the one at the start of the first part of combat. So the player can kill these enemies before going along the road to just find some set dressing. Really, there's no reason for the player to come here. It's just a bit of exploration as the road runs out. So the player will have to come back to the main road before continuing on. Out of the town, the player then enters the next zone in the level, which I designed to have these enemies that were meant to be broken or lost, as they bounce around from move point to move point quite sporadic and randomly, so you don't really know where they're going. In hindsight, I should have made them a bit faster, but because they're lost or don't work, their threat radius is quite low. I did have this area planned to be quite as a sandstorm sort of thing, so that's why the enemies are lost. But I couldn't figure out how to actually apply proper volumetric fog and make it look like a sandstorm. So the player continues on and comes to these giant generators. Now these generators power this bridge, because if the player was to go down into the river, then they'll just instantly die, because although it's a hover tank that can't work on water. So just like at the start when they had the holes, it's just a means of slowing the player down and making them take out the generators, which is one of the mechanics that I added to the game. The bridge, the pain volumes, and the kill volumes are all mechanics that I've added. So the generators were simply the target boxes that I reskinned and removed an element the component to stop them floating and spinning around. But carrying on, the player continues, still in the zone that's meant to be the dense sandstorm. Should come across another lost enemy close by somewhere. That's it. So destroy all enemies is a quest. Clearing a path is 50% done because you have to clear a path to the main base, which means raising the bridges by destroying each generator. So we've done 50% of that. Collect the special ammo is for the missile launcher, which is another narrative thing we'll come to in shortly. And infiltrate the base is basically get to the end point. So the player carries on here again with some more patrol enemies. Bit of set dressing as a giant pyramid. Again, the paint volumes are quite close to the path on this area, just to stop the player from straying too far away from the road. So the player carries on, destroying the enemies, and should come to the descent of the earlier plateau, where the player is informed through another tutorial pickup that they're sending air support, the third mechanic and new enemy that I've added to the game, the helicopter, and in which case we'll need to use the special anti-air missile launcher and need to collect the special ammo. So follow the tutorial marker for the green marker for the special ammo down this path. Here is also another checkpoint and repair, and again more ammo for every weapon. So now that we're fully stocked up, just nearly. So carry on. Shouldn't be long until the player comes to a helicopter. Should be right here. So the helicopter is much like the patrol enemy. It follows between points, but as soon as you go into its threat range, it breaks its patrol nodes, follows you, and then shoots at you. So I'll try and shoot back at it. So this is a target missile launcher. If you're too far away, I shot myself. It will just fire forward along the path. Now, sadly, in earlier testing before making this video, I found that whilst in the level, the missile launcher didn't actually work as well as it did during the testing level. So I've had to quickly disable the helicopters from the quest, sadly, because the missile launchers are so temperamental and doesn't actually want to hit them for some reason. Whilst in the actual demo, it worked better. So it'll just go to it, even if there's an enemy nearby. If you fire at that, it will just cast two. Ooh, I'm stuck. Oh, I fired the weapon. It will cast to the drone. So just take out this enemy and forget about the helicopter, unfortunately. So luckily, although I did fire, 4 is enough. So carry on to find some more enemies before getting to the enemy base. I moved the UI elements to the bottom because I found that having the UI on the bottom meant the player didn't have to move too far around the screen, and it's easier to look down than it is to look up. So it just keeps the UI nice and clean, keeps the game environment, the main game port, undistracting and clear of any distracting UI. So again, another bridge. We've now completed our path to clear a path to the base, collected the special ammo, we've gone to all the checkpoints, and we've just got the remaining enemies left. So we've got some turrets just up ahead. And now we should be very close to the base. So helicopters found us. I'm going to switch to the bunker buster and then bust the bunker. So the bunker buster works by creating a line trace. I'm just going to take this out, and it does 100 damage, but it also stops the player from stops all momentum. Oh, that's not good. The last so it stops all momentum until the weapon is charged up. Once in the base now, the helicopters can't reach us, thankfully. But now we get to once we're in the base, we have boss turrets, which are stronger, do more damage, and are laser weapons. Helicopters still trying to follow. So you just have to dodge these as best as you can, whilst also trying to take them out. Can probably use the missiles on them now. Nope. So again, bunker buster. I'll just show it properly. Stops all momentum, charges up, and then fires. The mesh, the door was a single static mesh, which I made into a blueprint enemy, and then just instead of destroying it on death, it basically just changes the static mesh to the same mesh but with a hole in it, so the player can just carry on through without worrying about it, instead of having to worry about using destructible meshes which don't work very well with the damage mechanic in the framework. I think I'm going to die. So luckily we had the checkpoint earlier. Ooh. Yep, I died. So I've got to go all the way back. In hindsight, I probably should have added a checkpoint closer, and the helicopters are now probably on their way to. Because of the pain volumes around the level, I can't just go straight up. Luckily, the tank can go quite fast when it needs to. So on respawn, the player gets 50% health and armor, just like the start, but the ammo stays the same. So we've still got 2 more bunkers to bust. 3 missiles and 294 autocannon rounds left. No. Quick time, I can talk about score. So the reason that I kept the score quite low in regards to the player being awarded low amounts of score is because I didn't want the player to be given numbers that can't be read properly, as in each enemy awarding like 10,000 score or something ridiculous, as it's just a number that doesn't mean anything in the end. So keeping the numbers small means the player can understand what they're actually getting. Is some that when you get too high numbers just lose meaning. So this was meant to be designed as a cargo, like supply room, some turrets. This was all designed before looking at the where are they? There. Before looking at the assets in the top-down framework. I probably should have put just some rocks and stuff. If I had more time, I would. So we're gonna bust the last door. Doesn't matter where I aim with the cannon. Oops. So these last 2 enemies will complete the destroy all enemies quest, and now we can infiltrate the base by going to the marker, which is down here on a mesh that I created, which is just meant to resemble a supply lift that's going to go down into the main enemy base. Completing all 5 quests creates the end marker, so I just have to move out and then move back in, and mission complete. So thank you for watching.